In the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful. Welcome back to my channel Nadir Hussain AR. Today we are going to discuss three scenarios which usually cause disruption in user experience, and we will check that what are those scenarios and what remedies are available in React Native to overcome the disruption and make the user experience as smooth and as polishing as possible. So the number one use case is that when we navigate a transition from one screen to another, let's suppose if you navigate from a list screen to a detail screen of a particular product or item, right? And on the detail screen you have to load the detail of that particular product or object, right? So you have to make API calls as soon as the component mounts, detail screen component mounts. So this usually cause a disruption in the navigation animation when a screen is navigating and you quickly start fetching the data. This might cause some disruption in the user experience. We will see that what solution we can apply, right? The second scenario is filter based flat list, right? You have a flat list, or it can be set a search based as well as searchable list, right? And you have to perform search like this. So here here you see this is a list and you have to filter it, type it into the search. So we have to check that how we can avoid disruptions, because when user is typing, if we do not take care of, and how we have to avoid bombardment of network calls to our server, right? Currently this scenario is handled. I will show you that how this was handled, right? And there are two different approaches. The third scenario is when we have to switch among different components, right? And if they are heavy components, right, on a screen, if there are two components, let's suppose it might be a graph screen where you have to show monthly, weekly or yearly, or this can be a screen like this where you have to upload favorites, and then if user clicks on cart, then cart component is heavy as well, and when you click among them quickly, how to avoid the disruption in this scenario as well. So these are three scenarios. Now we are going to look into the scenarios. As far as the first scenario is concerned, that making API calls when navigating to a new screen, for that React Native now recommends using InteractionManager. What is InteractionManager? Basically, let's go to the documentation. It allows long running work to be scheduled after any interactions or animations. You know, the interaction or the animation are basically high priority thing, because the user is interacting with your application, and you need to make sure that your thread is unblocked so that user interaction is smooth, right? So any long running task, let's suppose you have to make some API call, some database related call, then they have less priority, less urgent priority as compared with the user interactions. So you will put that into this run after interaction, and React Native will run those tasks after all user interactions are completed. Here I can show you in the code as well. So let's suppose here we fetch hobbies. Currently we are fetching only when the user searches. Instead, let's suppose if we have to fetch hobbies at the start when the component mounts, like this. Some hard coded value, right? So this might cause disruption. So in order to avoid that, we have to use InteractionManager run after interactions. What is saying? This should be a function. Okay, so this is the solution. Although interaction manager has other functions as well, but we will check its detail into a separate video which will be on the interaction manager, and we will cover the animation scenario as well. For now, you should remember that this navigation scenario, when you have to navigate from one screen to another, usually when you click on any list item and go to the detail screen of that, and you have to load some data, then you can avoid disruption by this interaction manager. Okay, the next thing is filter based or searchable list. As I have shown you this here, how to handle. There are two ways. The traditional method was that we used to use either a third party library like Lodash and its debounce function, right? Or we can simply set time out and delay our API call, right? So this search text is in the state and is set into on search hobby on the change text, and then this call is being made after 300. So if you even check in the here, if I type, you will see that it is handling very good. That even if I type fast, it will call when I have finished typing, not in between calls will be made. Let's suppose this, this got called only when I completed typing. So this is one traditional way. However, in the recent articles, you will find that instead of this basically debouncing, traditional debouncing, many articles will recommend you that use simply this technique, use transition hook. We have a use transition hook and its start transition method. However, I experimented it, but it is not as good as this traditional technique. So basically, if we put this now here, right, and comment out this sorry, now we have commented out the traditional way and are using use transition with the start transition. This state is going to be set. What this start transition means, I will explain it into later, but first let's now see the. Now you see on every digit, even I am typing, the call is going on. So this recommendation is usually not as good as the traditional method. So, however, this start transition works in our third scenario, where we have to switch components in the tabs and we have to load heavy components, right? For that it is good, but filter based flat listed best if we have to avoid bombardment of API calls to our server. Then traditional method of debouncing is very good as compared to the start transition. So you have to measure everything yourself and evaluate what approach is working for yourself and what is not working. Now at the end, I will explain that what is traditional rendering. In traditional rendering, basically in the React Native, we had basically two phases, the commit phase and the render phase. Render phase was just one long running synchronized basically phase, right? One long running task. Either it completed 100% or 0%. There was no other thing, right? So what React introduced in its version 18 was concurrent rendering, right? What is that? In concurrent rendering, this render phase is now divided into multiple small phases based on the, after every 5 millisecond, React checks whether there is some high priority task available. Then it leaves that render phase into the background and goes back and first deals with the high priority task, right? That's why this when we call start transition method tells that the changes code inside this method is relatively low priority, so you can deal with it in background. This is not urgent, right? And what renderer does is that in the background, because render phase is purely computational phase, right? It just computes and reconciles the difference and forms the virtual DOM. Then in the commit phase, that virtual DOM updates are actually updated into the actual DOM. So in start transition tells that you first basically deal with the high priority task, because the code in this time taking code in this is basically low priority. You can deal with it. Set state, if set state is going to call here in the search method, we are setting the state, right? Text. So this is going to cause deception, because based on this we are making a call to the hobbies list. So start transition tells that this is a low priority, you first have to deal with the high priority interactions. So I hope you have understand. Let me explain it by the this diagram as well. Here you see, without start transition, this set state, this is was one long render phase, right? Synchronous phase, either it will complete 100% or 0%, right? However, with start transition, this render phase is divided into multiple, because after every 5 millisecond React checks is there any some high priority interaction task, right? Then it deals with that, leaves it the render phase into the background, right? So this is the start transition, and it works better when we have to switch tabs. I already shown you the diagram for that as well. In this scenario, it works better when you have to load components, switch between the components, right? But in case of filter based input scenario, our traditional approaches works best, because it makes call after user stops typing. So I hope you have understood all these three scenarios, and this lecture has been beneficial to you. Please do comment as well, and give your feedback and suggestions as well. Thank you very much.